Hey there everyone, Paradise Gamer 13 here, and before I get to the meat of this video, I'm gonna probably kind of ramble for a little bit, so feel free to skip ahead. I'll post a timestamp to when I actually start talking about the announcement. But I just kind of want to give a very brief update, since obviously I haven't posted anything in a while, and also this is kind of a bit different than what I have typically done on my channel in the past. I will get back to doing gameplay videos. But I just got a new computer. I'm looking at some new recording software, so I'm kind of in a bit of a transition period here, and while I kind of get everything rolling again on that end, I figured I would do something a little bit different, and in this case talk about the recent Pokemon Presents announcement. I know I'm a few days late to the party on this one, but I figured I would just go ahead and kind of put my thoughts out there and see how things go, and if it goes well, then obviously there's another Pokemon Presents coming up here in just a couple days, so my goal would be to try to get something out a little bit quicker, but we'll see how this goes. So hopefully I don't ramble too much. I think the presentation was only about 10 minutes, so hopefully I don't go too far over that. So first thing is they announced, which going into this I kind of figured that there would probably be, a mobile game or two, kind of, like Pokemon Go and stuff would be obvious. I figured they would probably either, tease or at least announce a new spin-off, and obviously kind of, just do some last-minute advertising for the expansion. So I wasn't too far off ultimately, but I was not really expecting, as far as mobile titles to go, the first thing, Pokemon Smile it's called, and it's a very interesting application, I guess you could say. I like how it starts off. It's like, says something like, the narrator's like, is this a frequent occurrence in your household? And I'm like, no. But obviously, this is more directed towards parents, I guess, as opposed to people like me or younger individuals that are playing these games. I don't have a whole lot to say here. I mean, I guess it seems like an okay idea. I do like the fact that they're not like monetizing it, because I would feel like, especially given the target audience and its purpose, it would be kind of shady business practice, I guess, to stick all these microtransactions in just to get your kids to brush their teeth or whatever. That being said, I'm assuming it's actually probably a very smart idea, because it's more of like probably just further getting their foot in the door. You've got parents who are like, hey, my kid likes this app, and it helps with getting them to brush their teeth, so maybe I should get them the newest game or something like that to kind of keep them hooked on this. So I'm assuming that's the angle that they're working with, and why this app is completely free. Not that there's not really an issue with that, I guess. I mean, it's like I said, it's a good marketing practice, I think, so hopefully it goes well for them. I don't, like I said, I doubt that I'll even probably download it myself, but yeah, so I mean, that's a thing. And then immediately right after that, they announced another mobile application. Now this one, obviously, I guess Pokemon Smile is technically a kind of a game as well, but Pokemon Cafe is obviously more of a true mobile game. It's kind of like a puzzle-looking game, I guess you could call it. Again, this one, I mean, it looks okay. The art style is kind of interesting and unique. I don't know that I'll probably sink a whole lot of time into it. I played Pokemon Masters a little bit, but that's a bit different. Whereas, this is more of like I might casually pick it up and play. Pokemon Masters is like much more grindy and stuff. I don't really play it that much anymore. Anyway, I just kind of played it a little bit at launch. But this is something that I could kind of see, and I think it's interesting that it'll be available on Switch as well, because that's something that like Pokemon Masters and obviously Pokemon Go and stuff is not. But it looks kind of like, I'm assuming it'll ultimately kind of be like, I wanted to make it comparison to Pokemon Troze. Obviously they're completely different, but they're both like kind of mobile-y, and I hesitate to say that because I'm pretty sure Pokemon Trozei started out as like a DS game or something like that, and then I think the more recent iteration is a mobile title. But they're like those mobile puzzle games basically. So I mean, like I said, I'll probably download it. I'll try it out. They didn't say anything. Obviously, they made a very big point about Pokemon Smile not having any microtransactions, but Pokemon Cafe, they used the term, what is it that Nintendo calls their mobile games, free to start or something like that. So I'm assuming that means, and not that I was expecting it not to. I mean, these kinds of games obviously go hand in hand with microtransactions, just as long as it's not anything like overbearing. I'm sure it'll probably be generally disregardable. So that aside, I'm actually going to kind of jump around from the video a little bit and talk about, because they go away from the mobile games. I guess they want to give people a little bit of a break, and then they start talking about Pokemon Go after that. And so I obviously played Pokemon Go for a while. I kind of play it off and on a little bit now. I really only play it when it's really just like my conversation piece of, because I travel quite a bit. If I go somewhere interesting, or especially like somewhere that has a regional specific Pokemon that you can only get like south of whatever coordinates, or east of whatever coordinates or whatever, I'll fire it up and try to catch a few things to come back and show people or trade with them or whatever. But I don't play a whole lot. And especially, ironically, I haven't played a whole lot recently because of the whole, the quarantine situation and everything. But apparently, and I didn't even realize this until the presentation, but I guess they have adapted it to remote play, which makes sense because obviously Pokemon Go relies very heavily on people going out and about, and can't really do that so much right now. But it's interesting to see how that goes, because I know that's been a thing for a long time, that obviously they want to facilitate social interaction and going out and stuff, but you have like a lot of people that are like homebound that, obviously, unfortunately can't play the game the same way that, most people can. So, hopefully this kind of brings the community together a little bit more, I guess. Like I said, I'll have to log in, I guess, and kind of see what's been happening. I do, which I assume this is pretty much kind of expected. The Pokemon Go Fest will be digital this year, they announced. I'm assuming, though, like I said, if you were planning on going, you probably, hopefully, assume that it would be digital this year, because that seems to be the way most things are going so far this year. And they did announce Victini, which, well, not directly, I guess, but it was obviously very apparent between the silhouette and the little hint that they gave for that. In addition to that, they also, so again, they kind of jumped around a bit, I think, because they took a break, and then they talked about, I think they went to the expansions maybe, and then they brought up Pokemon Go again, and so, but this time it was just to announce Mega Evolutions. Well, mainly. They also announced, I think, Galarian Farfetch'd is coming, and then some cosmetic updates, like you get the Isle of Armor gear and stuff for your in-game character, which again is interesting. I don't play enough, or I don't really like go out and raid gyms or do the raiding and stuff very much these days, so I'm not really sure like what kind of impact it'll have. I can't really give a very intense breakdown of predictions on what kind of effect this will have on the meta or anything like that, but it will be interesting again, I guess. So that being said, I think I've gotten all the mobile game stuff is now has been discussed. So the big announcement, which I'm sure is the one that mainly caught everyone's attention, is they announced a new Pokemon Snap. I was pleased to see that HAL Laboratory will be working on it again. Obviously, they were behind the first one, and which I'm very fond of and have a lot of nostalgia associated with. It's kind of interesting because I was actually just recently thinking about the original Pokemon Snap and what it would be like if they made another one, in the modern era. And at the risk of I don't want to sound pessimistic by any means, because I'm obviously just as excited as any other Pokemon Snap fan. But I was trying to think. I don't know. I guess I'm just worried about how well it'll ultimately be received after it launches. Like, I feel like it's just one of those games that, it's kind of like how sometimes, a movie is really popular when it comes out, and it gets like a real big, like maybe even like a cult following to it. And then years and years later, they totally miss the window for a sequel, and then they're like, "Hey, we should capitalize on this," and the sequel never lives up. I shouldn't say never, but most times it seems to never live up to people's expectations because it's been, building up for sometimes decades. Which I think in this case, I think it's been like 10, I think they said 10 years since the original release or something like that. It's obviously been a long time. But I'm still optimistic. I mean, it looks very nice, which ultimately I think that's what I want, and what I assume most other people want is just, I want to like go through nice scenery and take pictures of modern Pokemon, and I'll be happy. So on that note, it was interesting to kind of look at. We didn't really get a whole lot of information on like what kinds of items there will be. We see apples, and I think that's about it. That's all I caught anyway. So no Pester Balls, no Poke Flute, no Dash Engine. And one thing on that note that I really hope that they give us the Dash Engine from the start. That's something that was a very nice kind of quality of life item in the original. But you had to go through, I forget, I mean, you don't get it till like basically the end of the game, I think, from what I remember. And it's mainly helpful for, when you're on this on-rails experience, which it looks like it's going to be again. I think at the very beginning of the trailer, when they drop in the, what's the name of the little, I forget now the name of the little cart that you're in from the original. I mean, assuming it's the same thing. But they drop you in on like a little dirt path, and it looks, very linear. Which, again, I'll be fine with that. I just kind of want to relive the Pokemon Snap experience in a new way with new Pokemon and stuff. So I'll be happy with that. And on that note, we see just a few glimpses of some new areas. We see like kind of a rocky plains area. My favorite, the ocean area. And then there's a beach, but I'm not 100% certain if that's like in its own unique area, because it almost looks like it's connected to the ocean area. Like you go through the ocean area and then maybe you kind of approach the beach, or maybe you kind of transition onto that, would be my guess. Maybe they're two separate areas. Obviously in the original, all of the areas were like mostly interconnected. Usually you had to have some, you go through the tunnel, the second stage, and you blow up an electrode to get into the volcano area, and so on and so forth. So maybe that's kind of what it is here. Like you go through the ocean, and then the next stage is you come up on the beach, and then you go through the beach area, which it would be interesting to see, because obviously the beach was the first area in the original Pokemon Snap, and if they have a beach area, you would kind of think that it would be like maybe they would put it as the first stage again, as kind of a callback to the original. But regardless, it looked very interesting. Especially, I do want to note, because they described it as like a series of islands, whereas I'm trying to remember back to the map of the original. Again, the original was very interconnected, and I'm pretty sure it was just like one big island. So I don't know if this will be, maybe you actually do go through like the ocean from, maybe to the beach, but maybe like you actually go through the ocean from like island to island, like maybe it's like a little mini segment. I'll be curious to see how they it would be actually really interesting if they have, you've got your on-rail segments, like the main areas like the beach, that plains area, but then maybe you go out into the ocean to travel between the different islands, and maybe that's a little bit more open-ended. I doubt that that's just pure speculation on my part, but it would be interesting to see. Back on the items though, real quick, one thing I forgot to mention, but talking about the beach kind of reminded me. So the way that Pokemon eat the apples is like really like it sounds ridiculous to like comment about how excited I am about this, but they had like different unique animations for how they eat the apples, which I thought was really cool. You got like Blastoise, and he swoops down and like picks it up, and I don't know, it'll just be interesting to kind of see. It feels like they have more personality than the way they would usually react to things in the original. Like I think they just kind of like went up to it and had like a very basic animation in the original, which again, I mean, we've advanced enough in technology that I would hope we would see these kinds of improvements, but these are the things that, you know, I guess I would expect from a new Pokemon Snap, and it seems like they're going to deliver on that, so that's nice. I'm curious, I'm almost wondering if we'll still get the Pester Ball or not, because they didn't show it at all, and you know, obviously not that I expect them to show everything, but it'll be interesting to see, because like almost I don't want to sound like I don't have faith in the Pokemon Company, but obviously they've been moving a certain direction, and I wonder if like they're like, oh, should we really give, you know, players this item that basically poisons and stuns Pokemon, you know? So I don't know if maybe they've completely replaced it with apples. Maybe they've got another new item that obviously they haven't shown us yet. It'll be interesting to see. So keep an eye on that, I guess, is what I would say. I don't, you know, that would be particularly disappointed if they didn't include the Pester Ball, but it would just kind of be like, eh. You know, that's unfortunate. But, you know, the original is still out there, so I could always go back and pester Pokemon with my little poisonous gas balls if I wanted to, I guess. As long as they have something new to replace it, I guess I should say. So other than that, there appears to be a day-night cycle, maybe. It's very interesting because we see in one of the clips there's a Primarina, and it's kind of real late in the day, as opposed to some of the other areas where we see in the morning. Now there's obviously two possibilities for that. There's either, you know, the time of day is just set depending on what area you go to, or maybe there really is like a day-night cycle, which would be really cool. Like, because my main thoughts on that are, you know, you go through that, or they show the ocean area in the daytime with like the Wailord and stuff, but then you see the Primarina at a completely different time of day. And so I'm wondering if, like, if my assumption on this is correct, maybe you see, you know, certain Pokemon that come out in the day and certain Pokemon that come out in the night, because obviously in the original that was before day-night cycles were implemented, so you didn't really have that, and it wouldn't have really necessarily been a thing, whereas now that almost seems, you know, kind of obvious, I guess, or, you know, kind of an obvious inclusion. So I'll be very curious to see how they handle that. That being said, we do see a Hoothoot, and like, so like the end of the trailer, they show like this big collage of pictures, and one of them has a Hoothoot. He's kind of in the shade of like some foliage, but it's obvious, it's very clearly daytime, and so that's the only thing that kind of makes me second guess my prediction on that, because it's like, why, if you have a day-night cycle, why would you have a Hoothoot that comes out during the day? I mean, like I said, granted, he's like in the shade, so I guess that's it, but and maybe, you know, like maybe he's actually asleep, and, you know, since it is the daytime, and that's an instance where you, I don't know, bop him with an apple or something to wake him up. But I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see a little bit more on that. Ultimately, my big hope for this game is, like I said before, I just wanted like a fun, kind of relaxing experience to go through, take pictures of newer Pokemon, see a lot of interactions between Pokemon, because that's something that we just don't see. We see it in like the TV show, I guess, and in the movies. We don't see it really at all in the games. I admittedly, so full disclosure, I haven't played Sword and Shield yet, so I'll get to that more when I talk about the expansion, but so I don't know. I mean, maybe they do more in Sword and Shield. I know Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, they had more interactions between Pokemon and the environments, but they still didn't necessarily have a whole lot of Pokemon and Pokemon interactions, which is what I feel Pokemon Snap the new Pokemon Snap will. I wonder if that's just a working title, or if they're just really going to go with new Pokemon Snap. Surely it's just a working title, I would think. But for example, we see like Pichu and I think Scorbunny on top of a Torterra, you know, walking around and that sort of thing. It'll be interesting to see like those kind of like set piece interactions, I guess. But I hope that they also have a lot of like the original Pokemon Snap had, like, you throw an apple between two Magmars and they fight over it. or you play the Pokemon flute for these big mysterious eggs, and they end up hatching into like the legendary birds, and you know, all kinds of like various little things like that. You knock the Squirtles over a mountain in like the final level, like the rapids level, to hit a switch on the other side of the mountain. Stuff like that was just really cool and kind of an interesting way of interacting with the Pokemon, seeing the Pokemon interact with each other. And I actually had, I guess I'm worried that they're gonna again move away from that, and I don't want to sound pessimistic, but my only concern would be that they would not do that. Like, they would have more of the set pieces and not as much like that occurs by means of input from the player. Because, you know, to be fair, like, some of them, I'm trying to think of a really good example. You wouldn't necessarily think to trigger, I guess, or at least I don't think so. I remember completing Pokemon Snap, obviously a long time ago, like back when it first came out, but I had like this little guide, and I want to go off on a little bit of a tangent on this one, because it is like the best Pokemon game related guide I have ever found, because it covers like Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. It covers Pokemon Snap pretty extensively. It has like a little like blurb for like a few pages, but I mean, it goes into like how you get extra points with a lot of these Pokemon interactions and stuff. It talks about like Pokemon merchandise. It talks about well, I don't think it talks about Pokemon Stadium, but it has like a whole Pokedex with Pokemon Stadium entries, except for Omastar for some reason. I never understood that. But it is like the most quaint little guide I have like ever had. And the weirdest thing, because I think I got it at like some kind of dollar store or something, like ages ago, back when like Pokemon Red and Blue were, well, I guess in Pokemon Snap was coming out and stuff. It has like this trainer on it who is definitely not, as far as I'm aware, from any game or any Pokemon media. And then most bizarrely, there's a Pokemon, but it's definitely not a Pokemon. I mean, it looks like it's probably Charizard or Dragonite or something. But I used to like spend so long when I was like a kid looking at this thing and being like, what is this supposed to be? You know, is this a new Pokemon that they're teasing? That is this some hidden Pokemon? You know, back obviously when the internet wasn't as prevalent as it is now with all the, you know, gamer related information. You know, there's a lot of rumors, and I'm like, maybe this is some like secret Pokemon that nobody's found yet. You know, kind of like the whole Mew under the truck situation. But I'll have to post like a picture of it on the screen or something, because it's so bizarre, but it was such a cool guide. And so, anyways, the reason why I went on that tangent is obviously the Pokemon Company has made it very clear that, you know, that, and again, you know, I'm not here to kind of pass judgment on their decision to kind of focus on a younger demographic, but I wonder if I shouldn't even really, I guess I kind of wonder, but at the same time, I'm not too concerned about it. I mean, we do see, you know, like I said earlier, I was talking about the animations of Pokemon, you know, picking up the apples and stuff like that. So I'm sure we'll see interactions between Pokemon and Pokemon, you know, that you'll get for like bonus points and stuff like that. I'm probably just reading far too much into it. And then kind of wrapping things up, we've got basically just the last moment expansion advertisement for Isle of Armor. They did mention there's a Zeraora Max Raid event, and I don't know, I haven't really paid that close attention because, again, like I said earlier, I haven't played Pokemon Sword and Shield yet. But I don't know if they've done these kinds of things in the past, but it's a very interesting way of having an event. Instead of just giving like distribution codes out for, you know, a shiny mythical or whatever, it's kind of cool that they have, because that's something that they've moved away from and made me really sad, because I remember, I think there was an interview with Masada, and I don't know how well, you know, maybe some of these, you know, something's lost in translation with some of these, because sometimes I'm like, ooh, I hear something that, you know, he says in an interview, and it causes me a little bit of concern. But I remember there was like the Diamond and Pearl event that was like went unreleased, or I think it was Diamond and Pearl, and his reasoning for that, he had some interview where he was just like, well, I thought it would be too confusing for players to figure out. And so if you I don't know if, you know, how much people, you know, if you aren't as really familiar with the older games, I know there's like a lot of people that either came in with Sword and Shield or played like Gen 1, Gen 2, and then didn't play anything for a long time until Sword and Shield. But to provide some context, so mainly probably Gen 3 and Gen 4 were the big ones, I think, that had like these. Actually, a little bit of Gen 5, I think, too, because it had like Victini, and that was the main one I remember. They had these like events, and instead of just like going to get GameStop or Target or wherever that would have these distribution codes that you would pick up and then you plug it in and you get like a mystery gift Pokemon. You would actually have to kind of work a little bit and have like maybe a little story attached to it, and it was really neat. And those are like some of my favorite things, because it's like you're actually going out and on this like little mini adventure to find a legendary or a mythical or some kind of rare Pokemon. But then they suddenly shifted very far away from that and just kind of went with the basic distributions. But now it almost seems like I mean, I know they still had like distributions like that with Sword and Shield, because I followed it like a little bit. But I mean, this seems like they're maybe kind of going with, at least in a new direction. It's obviously not necessarily like the same like little story segment behind it, but it's like an in-game event that I guess you don't even necessarily have to participate in. I think it just says you have to like transfer a Pokemon to Pokemon Home or something like that in between the raiding period. So I guess it works both ways. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. You just have to be active, I guess, basically during that period. But if you want to participate, it's a neat little way of like earning the distribution Pokemon instead of just getting it. So I'm on board with that. Hopefully they, like I said, maybe advance it a little bit more and get back to like some of the little mini story segments. But probably if they're worried about like people getting confused or not wanting to jump through too many hoops to get these kinds of Pokemon, then hopefully they'll kind of go with the same methodology of making it optional. Like maybe you do it during this time period, and then if you want, and if not, then just transfer Pokemon and we'll give you the distribution afterwards. I guess is probably the best way to handle it. Other than that, I can't really comment too much on the whole Isle of Armor stuff. Well, it's already out by now anyways, because I'm obviously very delayed in this video. So there's really not a whole lot to say there. I'm assuming if you like it, you probably like it. If you don't, then you probably don't by now. So I'm a little more excited. So my goal is I'm playing. The reason why I haven't played Pokemon Sword is because there's been all kinds of there's been a lot of remakes that have come out this year. It's interesting, but there's a lot of like really good games and remakes of games that I've wanted that have come out this year. So I've been a bit preoccupied. Like right now, I'm playing through the Xenoblade Definitive Edition because I have not played through Xenoblade Chronicles before. So that's a lot of fun. And I figure sometime after I get through that, and maybe after the slew of other games that are coming out in the near future that I'm interested in, basically my goal is to play before the Crown Tundra, I believe is the other DLC, comes out. Because at least aesthetically, that's more interesting to me. That and like the Galarian legendary birds and stuff, those kind of captured my interest a little bit more than, like the Isle of Armor seems okay. But I'm just more, I love ice levels and stuff, so the Crown Tundra seems right up my alley. So that's actually pretty much it for the Pokemon Presents. They dropped a teaser for a big new project, which is supposedly what they're going to be announcing this week, and here I think it's June 24th. I assume it'll be at the same time. I don't quite remember. I have to go back and look. But it'll be interesting. I'm willing to bet now, if they hadn't shown Pokemon Snap in this video, which that would have been kind of weird if it was mainly just an announcement about mobile games and the expansion, which was coming out and that we already knew about. But I'm assuming, so they've announced the spin-off. I know a lot of people are clamoring for Gen 4 remakes. I think it's still far too, especially since we've got DLC for the current generation still yet to come out. They're obviously not going to announce a new generation. I would be floored. Like, I don't know that I would probably not post a follow-up video to this, because I would probably be like dead from shock if they actually did that. So I'm assuming it's got to be almost 100% certainty that it's a Gen 4 remake. Well, actually, I should qualify that. Either Gen 4 remakes, or it's going to be like a new Let's Go game, similar to, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. It'll be like Let's Go something for, the Johto region. I think some people speculate like Togepi, or some of the since baby Pokemon was kind of a minor focus in that generation with the introduction of eggs and Pokemon breeding and everything. Personally, I know like the Let's Go games were very, very, very simplified, but I really enjoyed it for what it was. It's kind of nice to have that. I mean, I guess some people might argue, well, the mainline Pokemon games are kind of an easy, simple experience these days too. But the Let's Go games were just a fun way to kind of relive the older games, in my opinion. They had some I loved. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil the experience for people that haven't played it. But they did a few things in Pokemon Let's Go with they obviously they kept the main story, but they threw in like a few things that I think kind of would throw off veteran players like myself who have played through Red, Blue, Yellow countless times, Fire, Red, Leaf, Green countless times, so on and so forth. And so I really appreciate it. Like they had good attention to detail in there that I was not expecting from that kind of game. So I'd be hopeful for a new Let's Go game eventually. But I'm assuming I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed people if it's not Gen 4 remakes. So I'm willing to bet almost anything that that's probably what it's going to be. Like I said, I don't doubt that we'll eventually get a new Let's Go game, but I think Gen 4 remakes are going to take the first priority over that, at least for now. That being said, I'll be curious as to how it will be adapted. But this video is going on long enough. I'll go into that more, presumably when they announce it here in a couple days. So hopefully you guys found some value in this, in my ramblings. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments, or let me know your own thoughts on what was discussed in the I was gonna say today, but I guess it was a few days ago. But do you guys like this kind of video? I thought about doing one when they had the Paper Mario trailers, and I just didn't get around to it because obviously I'm a big Paper Mario fan. I had the original playthrough on one of the first video series I did on this channel. But I might do more videos like this in the future as well. We'll see. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you here again, I guess, in a couple days. So take care and have a good day, everyone.